Hi everybody, it's Cindy the Scrapologist. Thanks for coming back to my channel. I have 3 albums/journals that I'm putting in my shop today. They will be available, today's June 18th, Tuesday, and they'll be available starting at noon. I need to finish photographing them and getting them listed. 2 junk journals and one, this is the um, Traveler's letter writing kit, I guess I was calling it, that I showed a tutorial on. So this one you can make yourself if you want to follow along with the tutorial series that I have on my YouTube channel, but I am selling the album that I made. And let's get started because there's a lot to show. So this one is just a more of a traditional junk journal. It has tissue paper that looks like faux wood on the cover. It has some stamping on the cover, some rub-ons that say happiness is being creative, and some decorative buttons. It has my traditional faux leather covered spine, and the back is more of the wood. And on the inside, my thought behind this was to give you inspiration to actually use the journal. A lot of people say they don't know what to do with the journal, and so I thought you could take some of the ideas in here and maybe journal about them. So here we have a belly band. There is some sewing in the album, and a journaling spot here. It says yesterday's stories, today's treasure. So you could perhaps journal about something there, and this is a vintage ticket from my stash, from my collection. And it does have some ledger paper in it and some old book pages, the traditional stuff, coffee stained paper, a little bit of scrapbook paper, some more vintage papers. And here's a tag that you can use as a tuck spot, and this says smile, and it has a little butterfly on it. So maybe you could write about something here that made you smile that day. And as I always do when I do the traditional pamphlet stitch, I always reinforce the holes with a little bit of faux leather to make doubly sure this is going to last forever. So you'll see that in the center. There's a little pen tuck spot. Maybe you want to write about something specific there, your favorite story maybe, or a story somebody told you. This scrapbook paper says once upon a time. Here's an old vintage bridge scorecard from an inn that used to be local to my area here, in a tuck spot, made from an old vintage page from, actually I don't know when that's from, 1800s, early 1900s, I'm sure, because that's what most of my stuff is. Some of my favorite coffee stained paper. I love the way, I know I say this all the time, but I love the way my coffee stained paper turns out with all these blotches. And you can even use these. This almost looks like a face. You could even just start doodling on here. More vintage book papers, ledger paper. Look at that. This has some tissue paper here and here from kits that are available in my shop. Here's an old, a photocopy of an old ice cream receipt. There's a lot of blank space for you to do whatever you want with the journal. Here's a brown paper bag with some lace sewn on. Here's a vintage book page with some lace sewn on. And there's a tag inside. Again, not decorated. That's for you to use your imagination. Here's an old flashcard. This is a fabric tuck spot that's sewn on. There's the other side of the bag. This is embossing. I embossed a tree. You can't really see, I mean, you can see it, but it's raised, and I embossed a tree onto this paper. So on this side it's embossed, and on this side it's debossed. Can you see that? Here I have an ankle pocket. It matches the paper over here. Paper sewn on, vintage book page. And an old stamp catalog page. This is an envelope with some grids on it. Scrapbook paper. This is a vintage postcard from the 1940s. I cut a little tab in it, and you can use it as a tuck spot. Isn't that pretty? More of your traditional stuff here. And there is the back page, covered with scrapbook paper. So that's journal number 1, Happiness is Being Creative. The second journal is from a digital kit in my shop, Vintage French Textiles. And I've been working on this book for probably about a month. It's a little chunky because I couldn't stop. I'm even going to make another one of these, I think, for myself, because I love the concept behind this, and I'll talk about it a little bit in a minute. On the cover is a chipboard definition of a fabricologist. I'm pretty sure I got this from Amity Bloom. Fabricologist, one who has perfected the art of stashing fabric. And a little collage there with these are real vintage buttons. I believe this one is Bakelite. This here is part of the kit, and this is the actual, in the image of the actual book itself. So the book that the kit was taken from, I made a kit out of a vintage French textiles book where a company had a big book and they put swatches of their fabric in it and labeled each one, and I just loved it. So I made it into a digi kit, decided to use it for myself. This is kind of a faux suede fabric in a maroon color that's on the spine, and the back is more tissue paper showing some of the images from the kit. This is the front inside cover. And then I'll just flip through. So most of this is images from the kit. And I did try to incorporate textiles. So this book is really tactile. There's all kinds of things for you to feel and play with. That's what I love about it. I've really loved lately putting more and more textiles as I add to my collection, and I have some stash in my shop. I've loved putting textiles into my journals. So what these are copies, digitized images of actual fabric swatches from the 1800s that were made in France by this one particular company that made this textiles book. We'll get to the title page in a minute where it says the company name. So these were actually textiles that they used back in the 1800s. I sewed this. It's a fabric flap. Sewed it and put it on, and I just did some crazy sewing there to make it sort of fun. Had fun doing that. That's on a piece of muslin. Again, something to touch and play with. This is a vintage book pocket that I attached some lace to. Did some sewing, attached a button, more fabric, and a fabric tag is inside. So again, lots of textiles. Doily, here's a little tuck spot. turn too many pages. Some meat packers paper that I like to use with a digital image of some French ladies from that era. The one thing I really liked about this book, I didn't use any coffee stained papers in here. In the kit, I give you the back side. So if you, I don't, when I print a digital kit, I don't like having white on the back side. So this is what I provided you on the back side, and this is what the book really looks like now that it's aged. This is the true color of how it aged, and I love the color. Look at it compared to coffee stained paper. You can see the difference. It has just such a beautiful, beautiful brown color, and it just, everything pops on it. Everything just looks fantastic. I incorporated some sewing pattern paper and I antiqued some tape. I have a video on how I do that. And another fabric tag. This is a double pocket. Here's another pocket, or more of a tuck spot, I guess, with some sewing and some textiles and vintage buttons. A little piece of tissue paper here and there. All of my kits are available in tissue paper. If you want them, if you want me to print them for you and print them onto tissue paper, because it's kind of difficult to do that, and I've sort of perfected that technique finally. So if you can buy the kit and do that at home, but I can also do it for you. So you just contact me and let me know. More meat packers paper with a lovely vintage lady. A little more tissue paper. A fabric ruffle. I thought that this matched this very nicely. I happen to have some scraps of this vintage fabric. And just a little fun piece of fabric going up the side there. And this is just a piece of fabric, again, that I just glued on. More stuff to touch, but it would look really nice with a photograph or something on there, using it as a frame. Would be very nice. And more images from the kit. This is a vintage image from a woolen factory, I believe it is, or a textile mill. And I was really thinking about the ladies who worked in these mills, and the children too. And so I wanted to put an image of them in the book too. An old book page that has to do with merchandising, and there's an old factory. This is a book page from the 1800s. Oops, I fumble fingers this morning. Lots of space for you to apply your favorite fabrics or do some journaling, whatever you want to use this for. Another vintage lady. This is really nice. Nice. It kind of makes you want to do something with it. Makes you want to glue something on it or play with it. Another vintage lady. And here's a tuck spot with a little journal card or whatever you want to use this for that has some vintage French ladies on it. So just about every page has an image of a vintage fabric swatch that was glued into the book. And at the top, I love the vintage writing. It has numbers, and then it has French. I'm pretty sure this is French, that describes that fabric swatch. So if you read French, this is going to mean even more to you. I would love to be able to read everything that's on these pages. Different patterns that they used back then. Another little fabric ruffle. And then something a little different I did with this one. The inside, so this has this has 4 signatures. The third signature ended up kind of being in the center of the book. And so what I did was I put some elastic in here, and I decided to do this kind of like a traveler's notebook. So this center signature you can take out if you want and add to it. Maybe in here you want to stick some of your favorite fabric swatches. You know, you could do something like this. And I don't know, whatever you would like to do with it. I wanted you to feel creative with this book. So this is the Traveler's Notebook, if you will, section. And again, plenty of room for you to play with it. Another vintage book page from the 1800s, Facts for Merchants. And a little paper bag with some fabric, some textiles. These are, again, are the sort of patterns that you would see on their fabric back then. Here, I found a piece of scrapbook paper I had that had some French words on it, French menus actually. And this is just tissue, no, excuse me, what I did was I printed the collage sheet from the digital kit onto fabric. And then I glued it on. So this is actually a swatch of fabric. And then I made a little textile brooch. It's on there's a little safety pin up here. And it says Final Notes. Here's a little French card, or a card that has French writing on it. And this is a watercolor card from Prima. So you can use wet medium on this, watercolor paints, and you can paint this in yourself. A fabric belly band with some more vintage French ladies and gentlemen and children. That's a pretty one. This was kind of cool. On the back of the merchants, it's had the height and weight of men and the height and weight of women back then. They were very small. The average man, well, it doesn't say what the average height was, but let's say a 6-foot tall man weighed 170 pounds. And let's see, 5-foot 4-inch woman, that's what I was, average 135 pounds. I bet we've gone up a bit since the 1800s in our weight, our weight averages. This is a fabric collage that I sewed, and it has a Tim Holtz image here of safety pins on it. And then this is we're back to having a sewn signature. So this was the one that pulls out, and now we're back into the regular signature. Another fabric collage. All kinds of textures there. Silk, cheesecloth, buttons, muslin, or cotton. Love it. This is a real fabric vintage doily that I had a hard time parting with, but I wanted to put it. It really belonged in this book, and I don't know how old this is, but it's in here for you, and I think it just looks beautiful. Whoops, we have a page that got stuck together. This is a tuck spot, and I made it into sort of a tag shape, and I found an image of a couple of ladies from that era that worked in a textile mill. So I thought it would be nice to put them in here. This is real fun. This would be a fun frame for putting something on here. That's what I think a lot of this stuff could be. Just such a nice background for whatever you choose to put on. This is a little lace tuck spot, so there's some lace here, and then you can stick something in here. Another fabric collage. This time I used it as a tuck spot, and it's backed and it's kind of thick, so you should be able to stick things back there. And some tissue paper. Okay, this image here was on the inside front cover of the actual book. It's Mason Robert was the name of the company, name of the textile company that made this swatch book. More sewing pattern paper that I made into a pocket. Here's another waterfall card for you that you can journal or put a photograph on the back. You can paint it. More tissue paper. Another tuck spot with some vintage ladies on it, vintage fashions, French fashions. And some more sewing and lace and a little tab. And the tab here, the little dangle says, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get this on the camera. Let's see. Oh yeah, it says handmade. And that's on the tab. Here's the other end of that beautiful doily. And some more textiles with some little black safety pins that I snagged from my mother's stash. She has more stuff than I do. And I have a lot. And then this is the last page. So that is the Fabricologist or Vintage French Textiles journal that will be available in the shop. The last one is not really a journal per se. It is, I started out just wanting to make a lap book. So this is a lap book style, but I ended up making this into a little kit that you can take with you if you're going on a trip. Maybe you really like to write postcards to people, or maybe you're a snowbird and you want everybody's addresses of wherever you summer or winter, and you want to take this with you back and forth. It could be kind of like a little address book. So it has notes on it, and it kind of looks like cracked glass, and then a vintage leather. I made this, the belt buckle. I took some vintage leather that I had and made a little belt buckle out of it. It doesn't close all the way right now because it's still stiff. I haven't played with it enough. I want you to do that, whoever the lucky person is that buys this. But it is painted fabric, so it's still a little stiff on the sides here. The more you open and close it and use it, the better it will be. So this comes unlatched and it is attached, so you won't lose it. It's attached on the front. Okay, and there's an image of a pen and an old inkwell. Everything's kind of a writing theme, and it sort of looks like denim. Then we open it up here, and let me do this. And what we have going on in here, let's start on the left side. On the left side is, I typed on my husband's vintage typewriter, I typed addresses, and there's a little vintage image of a vintage stamp there. And it's magnetized, it opens up, and inside you have a place to put addresses, and that goes right in here. And this opens up, and you can use this for whatever you want to glue down or attach here, or leave it blank. And it closes nicely with the magnet. On the right side, let me flatten this, there we go. On the right side, we have, this does not close with a magnet, it closes with a paper clip. So I have a little paper clip here with some vintage writing paper. Here's the paper clip, has a little stamp on it. And this opens up, and on this side, I printed images of vintage calling cards. So maybe you're going visiting, and you want to leave your calling card. So what I would do is type my name or whatever you want on here. That's what they did back in the day. They had their name on these and they would leave them with the butler. There's a whole bunch of these in here. These are also available on my Flickr page. I'll try to remember to put the link below. But it's the Scrapologist on Flickr, and you can, oh, that one's upside down. You can print these yourself if you want more. And this is a acetate pocket, so you can see right through it. Over here, I put, oh, I keep forgetting to fix this. I've got to fix this. I have it's going to be 3 wax seals that go in here. Maybe you want to pull it off and glue it to an envelope, and it just closes like so. Let me pull this out so I remember to fix that. Out of sight, out of mind. And in here it says priority, this little pocket. I have some little vintage labels for you. Special handling, special delivery, glass, handle with care, fragile, rush. Just some fun. There's airmail, special handling, just some fun little labels that you may or may not want to use. And that closes up like so. And we'll put our paper clip back on quickly. Okay. Then here we have 2 coffee stained envelopes. This one has a pocket that says letters, and there's room for journaling. And then there are some journal cards in here. Maybe you want to write more addresses. Maybe people are writing you letters and postcards and you want to store them in here. You can also store them right inside the envelope too. So use these for whatever you want. This one says telegram on the front, more room for journaling and more room to put some things inside. And then here, this is magnetized. There's a little thing that says message on the front, number and date. And these flip up. As long as you don't stuff this too much, the magnets should work. And in here, we have a little booklet that has a magnet on it. It's covered in tissue paper from my historical documents kit. And inside here we have some handmade little postcards that were made out of vintage book pages. And this one was made out of tissue paper from my kit in my shop. So beautiful. And on the other side is a little postcard. We made these in the class too. And in here we made just some envelopes. Here's one made out of a vintage book page. Came out so pretty. And here's one made out of scrapbook paper from the haberdashery kit that I love so much, that I'm always talking about. Those go in here. Whoops, let me put them in one at a time. I'm at a funny angle. There we go. Okay. Then in here, there's on the paper clip, I have some stamps. These are from the 1970s from my personal collection. When I was a little kid, I collected stamps. And inside, I was originally going to put the stamps on the inside, but they fell in there too much, so I just made this fun little booklet out of book pages. But you can take this out and put stamps in here, or whatever you would like to do. And this closes back up with the magnet. And then our second little pile of goodies here. By the way, this is an accordion pocket, so you can really stuff it. There's plenty of room for you to put stuff in there. Let's see if I can kind of give you an idea. but this one, this is not going to stay up. Hold on. Let me get my hands. Okay. So it's an accordion pocket, and it opens pretty wide. So with this one, it's held together with a paper clip that has a vintage pen nib on it and some textiles. And there's just a fun little page that I mimicked an ink blotch, like in the old days when they used the ink wells on a vintage book page. You can use that for whatever you'd like. It has delivered on it, and it has more of the historical documents tissue paper from my shop on the back. A little bit of collaging. It just kind of got messy with the tissue paper. And then on the inside, this is for you to put whatever you want on the inside. I did put address labels when I was making the class. Obviously, you don't want my address in there. So put some address labels in here maybe. My mother found these cute little airmail packages with twine. Those are in there. And then she also found these sticky notes that look like airmail envelopes. So I'm going to put those in there for you instead of my address labels. Unless you want to send me a little gift or something. So this all goes back together like so. This is a little taller, so I put this one in the back and I put this one in the front, but you can do whatever you want. That closes back. Oops. That closes back up. And then we've got our belt buckle. So there, that was a little bit of a long video, but I wanted to get through all three of these. These will be available noon today in my shop, the Scrapologist, and I hope you love them as much as I do. A lot of my heart went into these, especially this one. And I'll see you in the next video. I have some other things I'm going to be putting in the shop in the next couple of days. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.